Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Previously I explained list in Python. Today I will explain tuple in Python. At first I am explaining homogeneous tuple. Actually homogeneous means the tuple will consist similar types of data. That means it can be integer type, it can be floating type, etc. For this reason here I am taking integer type data type, and for this reason here I am taking the reference my underscore tuple and initializes with the items 1, 2, 3, 4, and at last 5. Now I am using the inbuilt function print for printing the tuple my underscore tuple, and at last print slash n means actually for line breaking. Let's run the program for better understanding. Here the first line is the output for the first print. Here output screen shows 1, 2, 3, 4, and at last 5. Let's move to the next part, that is positive indexing. It is very interesting. Positive indexing means the indexing in positive way. That means it starts from 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in this way it goes. And for this reason, here I am using the inbuilt function print, and between the parentheses after the print function I wrote my underscore tuple, and between the third bracket 0 for the first index, that is 0, and then 1. Similarly it goes to 2, 3, 4, 5, and it will stops at the last index. And at last here I am using the slash n between the parentheses after the print function for breaking the line. Let's come to the output screen for better understanding. Here the output screen shows 1, 2, 3. Actually it means 1 is for the zeroed index, because at first the element is 1, and then 1 is the second element, that is 2. That's why in the second position 2 is printed, and then 2 index means 0, 1, 2. That means in the second, actually the index of 2 means the element 3. That's why the output screen shows at last 3. And then I using the slash n between the parentheses after the print function for breaking the line. Let's move to the negative indexing. Negative indexing is similar to positive indexing, but actually it starts from the -1, and it starts from right to left, but the positive indexing starts from left to right. It is the difference between positive indexing and negative indexing. And also the other difference is positive indexing starts from 0 and negative indexing starts from -1. Now I will discuss the negative indexing. For discussing the negative indexing, here I am using the inbuilt function print for printing something, and between the parentheses after the print function I wrote my underscore tuple, and between the third bracket -1 for the negative indexing. That means it is the first element from the last. That means it is the element that is 5, because it is the last element. And then I wrote print between the parentheses my tuple, and after that between the third bracket -2. It means it is the second last element. And at last -3. It means it is the third last element. Let's move to the output screen for clear understanding. The output screen shows 5, 4, 3. Now I am explaining one by one. At first -1 indicates the last first element. It means it is 5. That's why output screen shows first 5, and then -2 means the second last position. Actually second last position means 4. That's why it shows 4, and then it's -3, that is third last position element. That's why the third last position element is last 5, then 4, then it's 3. That's why the output screen shows 3. And then I am breaking the line for clear visualization. Let's move to the next one, that is slicing. Here I am using the inbuilt function print then my tuple between the third bracket 1 colon 3. The first is 1 and the last is 3. Actually, the first is the start bound and the last is the end bound. First bound is inclusive, but the last bound, which is end bound, is not inclusive, it is exclusive. For this reason, it will execute from 1 to 2. The 3 is not inclusive, and it will print the elements from the first index to second index. It means it will print 1 and 2. Let's move to the output screen. Actually, not 1 and 2, because 1 is the zeroed index. It will print from first index. That means it will 2 and 3. That's why the output screen shows 2, 3. 2 is for second index, that is the index number 1, and 3 is for the index for 2, because the last index 3 is not inclusive. That's why the output screen shows 2, 3. Let's move to the second technique of slicing. Here I wrote the inbuilt function print, then the between the parentheses my tuple, and after the my tuple, here is the third bracket, and between the third bracket colon colon 2. It means actually it starts from the first and traverses all the items. And at the last, here I took 2 for stepping, and it will start from the first index. That means zeroed index, and that is 1. That's why it first print 1, and then we will calculate the stepping 2. For this reason, 2 means the second will not inclusive, 3 will be inclusive because the step is 2. That's why 3 comes in the output screen, and after that 4 is not inclusive. Again 5 is inclusive because the step is 2. That's why 5 also comes to the output screen. That's why the final output is 1, 3 and at last 5. Actually, these features also available in list which already I explained. Let's move to the next portion, that is finding length. Actually, length means the number of elements between the tuple, and that's why I am using the inbuilt function len for calculate the length of the tuple. And here I wrote the inbuilt function print then between the parentheses len of my tuple. Let's move to the output screen. It shows 5. Actually, it is the length of the tuple. Here the number of elements is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here the length is 5. That's why the output screen shows 5. Now move to the next part, that is finding maximum and minimum value between the tuple. Here I wrote the inbuilt function print then f string, and then between the double quotation maximum colon between the curly bracket max of my tuple. It means it will print the maximum number between my tuple. Here the items are 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Here the maximum is 5, and similarly the minimum is 1, and for this reason I am using the inbuilt function min of my tuple, and that's why it prints the maximum is 5 and minimum is 1. Now I am using the slash n for breaking the line. Let's move to the next part, that is sum of all elements. Actually, it means it will add all the elements which are presented in the tuple. It means it will calculate the summation of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And to implement this summation, here I am using the inbuilt function sum, and between the parentheses after the sum function I wrote the tuple name, that is my underscore tuple. Let's move to the output screen. It shows sum of all elements colon 15. Actually, it is the addition of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now I am trying to change or edit one item between the tuple which is in the index of 1, that is the second item, but it is not possible because tuple is immutable. One time it is declared, it cannot possible to change or edit the value of the tuple. That's why the operation cannot possible, but this operation is possible in the list which already I discussed in my previous video. Now let's move to the next part, which is membership testing. Membership testing means the member means the item is in the tuple or not. If it is true, then it will return true, but if it is false, then it will return false. Now I am using the inbuilt function print for get the output. Here I wrote 1 in my tuple between the parentheses after the print function. If it is true, then it will return true and the output screen will show true. If it is false, then it will return false. That's why the output screen will show false. Let's see what is the actual output. Each one between the my tuple. Let's move to the tuple portion. Here, 1 is already between my tuple. That's why it will return true, and that's why the output screen will show true. That is already visible. The first is true, and then I wrote the print function, then 1 not in my tuple. It means 1 is not my tuple. It is true, then it will return true, neither false. But actually 1 is presented in my tuple. That's why it will return false. That's why we are seeing the output screen false. Let's move to the third part. 20 in my tuple. Actually 20 is not my tuple because the tuple consists from 1 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. That's why 20 is not between the tuple, and for this reason it will return false, and usually the output screen shows false that are visible in the output screen. Let's move to the another part, that is printing all items separately. That means the all items between the tuple will be printed on the output screen separately. Now I am using the looping statement for then the variable I, then in my tuple is the name of the tuple, and then colon, then print I. Actually, in each iteration, the variable I will store the items from the zeroth index, and in each iteration, it will print the items one by one. And for better understanding, we are coming to the output screen. Here, at first it shows 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and at last 5. Actually, what is happening? Now I am explaining that. The tuple consists 1, 2, 3, 4, and at last 5. And at first, I stores the element 1, then it prints 1 in first iteration, then I will store 2, and in second iteration it will print 2. In the similar manner, it will print up to 5. Let's move to the next part, which is indexing and times of appearing. Indexing is usually means the index of the item, and times of appearing means how many times the item is presented between my tuple. Let's move to the inner part of the discussion. Here I wrote print then my tuple dot index between the parentheses 4. It means it will print the index of the item 4. Let's move to the tuple portion where I declare the tuple. Here the items are shown 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Here I want to print the index of the 4. That means we will print the index of the 4. Actually, index starts from 0. That's why 0th index is 1. First index number is 2. And similarly, 4 will be 0, 1, 2, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. That's why the index of 4 will be 3. And that's why the output screen shows 3. Let's move to the next part. That is print then the parenthesis then my tuple dot count between the parentheses 2. It means here we will calculate the number how many times 2 occurred between the tuple. Let's move to the declaration part. Here we are seeing that 2 is one time. There is no repetition for the item 2, and that's why the output screen shows 1, which are visible to us. The output screen shows 1 because there is one occurrence of the item 2. Now move to the another interesting portion, that is concatenation. string tuple is immutable, but we can concatenate one tuple with another tuple by the inbuilt function print. Here, just before the print function, I declared another tuple which is my underscore tuple 2 and initializes with the items 4, 6 and at last 8. Now I am using the inbuilt function print and then between the parentheses I wrote my underscore tuple plus my underscore tuple 2. Here plus is used for concatenate one tuple with the another tuple. The first tuple is my underscore tuple and the second tuple which is the another tuple is my underscore tuple 2. Let's move to the output screen. Actually, what is the output we will see? Usually it will print all the items between the first tuple and the second tuple that is visible to us on the output screen. Actually, the first tuple consists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the second tuple, which is my underscore tuple 2, which consists 4, 6, 8. Usually, for this reason, we think that the output screen shows all the items from the first and the second. That's why it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 6, 8 in tuple format. Let's move to the another part, that is converting a tuple to a list. Yes, it is possible to convert a tuple to a list. And for this reason, here I declared one reference that is my underscore list, and then after initializing, I wrote list, and after that, between the parentheses, I wrote the tuple name that is my underscore tuple, and then I am using the inbuilt function print for printing the list which is my underscore list. And let's see what is actually happening. Usually it will convert the tuple to a list. That's why we are seeing that the elements comes on the output screen as the format of list. That's why it shows between the third bracket the elements are presented. The elements are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 between the third bracket, which is a list. That's all about homogeneous tuple. Let's move to the another types of tuple, that is heterogeneous tuple. Heterogeneous means the tuple will consist of different data. It can be integer, it can be floating, it can be boolean, it can be string, etc. For this, I am storing various data type. At first, I am storing Rahul, that is string, then 20, that is integer type, then 10.98, which is floating type, and at last true, which is boolean type. Now I am printing the tuple by the inbuilt function print. Actually, the inbuilt function print is discussed in this video in the previous part. For this reason, I actually discuss it in short way just by the print. Here I am using the print and then my tuple 3 for printing the tuple. Here we are seeing the tuple is printed on the output screen. Here first is string Rahul, then it's integer 20, then it's 10.98 actually, which is floating value, and at last true, which is usually a boolean. Boolean is two types, either true not false. Here it's true. For this reason, here we saw true. Now we will discuss the positive indexing. It is very similar, actually very similar, not actually totally similar of the homogeneous tuple. Now I am explaining. Here, print my tuple 3, 0. It will print the number which is at the first position, that is the 0th position. And that's why it shows Rahul. And then my tuple 3 between the third bracket 1. It will print what? Actually, it will print the item at the second position. It means 20. But the index is 1 because we know that index starts from 0. That's why the index of 20 is 1. That's why it shows 20. Similarly, print my tuple 3 between the third bracket 2. It means it will print the third number, that is the floating value 10.98, which is usually shown on the output screen. Unless the boolean type true. The index of true is 3. It shows on the output screen true. Now I am breaking the line by the statement /n. Now let's move to the another part, which is negative indexing, which is already presented in the homogeneous part. But I am discussing again for better understanding. Here I wrote print my tuple 3 within the third bracket -1. Actually, it means it prints the first element from the last. Actually, negative indexing starts from right to left, but positive indexing starts from left to right. That's why negative indexing will print from the last and it will print the very first element from the last. That's why it will print the last element, that is true, which is Boolean type. Then I am using the inbuilt function print my tuple tree between the third bracket minus 2. It means it will print the second last element of the tuple, that is the floating value. That is what? That is 10.98. Let's move to the another part, that is minus 3, which is the index. And what is this? It is the integer type, that is 20. And at last, what will print it? It is the string. What is the string? Is the Rahul. That's why the output screen shows Rahul at last. Now I am breaking the line by the slash n. Let's move to the slicing part, which is already presented in the homogeneous part, but I am repeating again for better understanding. Here I am using the inbuilt function print, then between the parentheses, I wrote my underscore tuple tree between the third bracket. After the my underscore tuple tree, I wrote 1 colon 3. Here 1 is the starting bound and 3 is the ending bound. We know that the starting bound is inclusive, but the ending bound is not inclusive, it is exclusive. That's why the index 3 is not inclusive, and that's why it will print from the index 1 to 2. That's why what will it print? Let's move to the tuple part. Here it will print from the 1 index, that means it will print from 20 to 10.98 because the upper bound is not inclusive. Let's move to the output screen. Actually, what is happening? Yes, actually, it is happening what already I said, that is 20 and 10.98. Let's move to the another slicing technique, that is print after that between the parentheses my tuple tree, and after that I using the third bracket and colon colon 2. Actually, what is happening here? Actually, colon colon 2 means it starts from the zeroed index and it traverses all the items. But here is another thing, that is 2, that is step. It will steps forward in each printing. That means it will start from the zeroed index. Let's move to the declaration part. That is zeroed index is what? Here is the string Rahul. For this reason, it will start from Rahul. That is actually seen in on the output screen Rahul. And then what is happening? There is step 2. That's why we'll step 2, then it will be 10.98, but 20 is not inclusive. 10.98 will be inclusive and 10 will be step 2, but after step 2 there is no item. For this reason it will stops on the item 10.98, which is very interesting. Let's move to the another part, that is printing all items separately. It means what? Actually, it will print all the items which are presented between my tuple. And here I am using the looping statement for, and then I am using one variable I in my tuple tree. Actually, what is happening now? I am discussing. In each iteration, the items from the zeroed index means from the starting index will store in the variable I, and in each iteration it will print the variable I, and it will iterates until the items has been finished. And let's move to the output screen for better understanding. Here I am seeing Rahul 2010.98, and at last true. That means we are now moving to the portion where I declared the heterogeneous tuple. Here I declared Rahul 2010.98 and at last true. Here is printing at first Rahul, then it's 20, and then it's 10.98, then it's true. But here is repetition of 10.98. I will run the program again for better understanding. Yes, actual result is coming 10.98, 10.98 each one time. But in previous output there will the repetition. For this reason I was confused. But now the output is in correct format. That is at first Rahul, then at first Rahul, then 20, then 10.98, and at last true. That is the correct output. Now I am finished the all discussion for today's video. Thanks for watching.